Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to introduce you guys to the Mudhorn. Now this Mudhorn is another one of the customizations from Jesse Ganteaume of Artisan's Armory on Etsy. Now Jesse, I've reviewed some of his sabers over time, the Nautilus, the Cephalus, the Dracaris, the two Cthulhu sabers that he made for me, and the Dragon saber that he made for my wife. I also reviewed one of his stock models, which was an Egyptian themed one before. This is another one of his stock models. Now before I get into this saber specifically, let me mention that Jesse is stepping back a little bit from the speed of at which he was producing previously. He's got some other projects going on, so he's not exactly taking commissions anymore, and he did a lot of commissions. But he is still, every so often, putting ready-to-ship sabers up on his Etsy shop. And so I wanted to review this one because the Mudhorn is one of the models that shows up on that Etsy shop fairly frequently. This is one that he has done a few times at least. So underneath all of this, this awesome finishing job here, the Mudhorn is a Basic Series Kybers Saber. Now I've reviewed the Basic Series Kybers before. This is the RGB color changing version of the Kybers. So this thing has 3 sound fonts, lockup, color or red, green, blue color changing, etc. So if you want to see more on what the base saber is, I'll go ahead and put a link in the description to the review of the base saber and to the and if you're looking for it, the base saber itself is from Kybers on Amazon.com. The seller is Upstone. But the sabers are fairly sturdy, fairly nice blend of features per cost, and so they're a nice thing to get and sort of customize down. And that's what Jesse does at Artisan's Armory. So the Mudhorn, what he's done is he's taken what is basically kind of a humdrum saber, and he's weathered it, added a grip, added an icon, and given it a kill key. This blade that you see, I have this blade with it because I think it looks really nice with it, but this blade is not included. This is a blade that I made in the style of a Ripper blade, though Gary Ripper's lightning is a lot more intricate than mine, but I think it gets the job across, or it gets the job done and gets the message across. So the saber itself, it's weathered, so you can see the weathering job on here. It's not just a paint, but the weathering is dents and scratches and carbon scoring. And if you think that you can just take an aluminum saber out and like chuck it down the street and end up with weathering that looks like this, you can't. The weathering on an aluminum saber is very bright and shiny in terms of the scratches. What you have to do in order to get this is you have to be a lot more meticulous in order to make fake weathering look real. You got to add the black paint and then sand off on top of it and all kinds of other things like that. But what you end up with is some really nice sort of carbon scoring marks like this in the saber itself. So this thing has been weathered, and this has a clear coat on top of it. So the weathering is fairly durable. If you do chip it, you're not going to chip off a big old section of paint. You're just going to put a scratch or a ding inside of it. And with a heavily weathered saber like this, I guess not heavily weathered because I've seen some things that are just utterly destroyed, but with a weathered saber like this, the scratches and dings will add to the weathering effect, especially if you go back over and you get some black paint in them. But over time, scratches and dings, you don't have to worry about the durability of a paint job like this because it's only going to get more weathered. The icon right here, the Mudhorn icon, if this looks familiar, that's because this was in the Mandalorian series. The Mudhorn was sort of a rhino, like a furry rhino that laid eggs or something. It was really strange. But anyhow, it's the Mandalorian's totem, and so this is the symbol from the totem that he's put on here. The general idea behind this is that the Mudhorn saber is like a Mandalorian trophy saber that's been carried around and beaten up and not generally used, but carried around as a trophy back from the times when Mandalorians and Jedis had much more interaction. So again, that's why it's got a black saber blade, because I thought it sort of suited the saber. But very spot-on Mudhorn design there, and it's flush to everything else, so there's no grooves or anything like that. This feels like it was scored into the metal or forged into the metal, even though it is paint. So it's a really nice paint job, and you can see the blending around the side. There's no hard edges like it's a stencil. It sort of flushes into the paint and the weathering. Okay, the leather handle on this is real leather, but it's sort of a patchwork that's been, I don't know if this is cut up and glued down or if this is a single piece of leather that's been scored into. It looks like it's weathered leather that's been sort of Frankensteined together on here and glued down. But the overall appearance of it is this is something that was hanging around, or maybe a piece of a trophy or a piece of a Mudhorn shaved down, I guess, shaved Mudhorn. I'm sure that's got to be trending somewhere. But the leather grip on this is really well affixed. You don't have to worry about it coming off, and it's got a very interesting sort of Frankenstein-esque texture to it. The paint that he's got on here also doesn't disturb the threads, so if you had a couple of these, you could put them together into a staff. The last thing that I wanted to look at here is the kill key. Now, the kill key on this is a rather plain-looking button kill key, but the weathering on top of it matches the rest of the saber. And kill keys on Kybers sabers don't exactly function. The recharge port right here does not disrupt the saber from turning on, so it doesn't stop any ambient draw on the board like a kill key generally would. In a lot of sabers, you take the kill key out in order to activate the saber, and then it draws from the board, and then you can activate it. And if you put the kill key in, the saber will not turn on. Okay, you saw that I had this on a little bit ago with the kill key in. That's because the Kybers recharge port doesn't actually function as a kill key. So what this is, while I call it a kill key, this is more just a cosmetic thing, because this looks new and shiny and sort of disrupts the flow of the saber. But you stick this in there when you're not charging the thing, and now it's just a little weathered grommet that matches the flow of the saber and doesn't disrupt it with that hole. Also, it keeps, if you're playing around with this in dirt and mud, it keeps mud and dirt from being able to get into the biggest place where it's going to get in there and cause some problems. So overall, a very nice streamlined design on the Mudhorn, very rustic, very Mandalorian looking. Pretty nice model from Jesse Ganteaume at Artisan's Armory. I'll put a link to his Etsy shop, and like I said, a link to the base model of this saber and my review thereof, so you can look at the features. But if you're looking for, I mean, it's not powder coating, but it's a very durable paint job that looks spectacular and creates out of a humdrum saber something that's really nice as part of a costume, or to carry around at a convention, that looks a whole lot more authentic than it started out looking. So here we are, the Mudhorn. If you've enjoyed this review, please join me back for more, and I'll see you next time.